Hey guys, welcome into the Quick Take Sports Podcast. This is Chris.
And Ty over here coming at you with a very special fantasy football edition with our top 5 fantasy sleepers and busts. Chris, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So first person on my list is DeShone Kizer for the Cleveland Browns, and I think he's going to have a great year this year, especially because of his rushing game. That he can really get some yards in the rush, and I think with the Browns not having many other options offensively, it'll give him a lot of opportunities to grow. Any comments?
I actually have Corey Coleman on my top 5 fantasy sleepers as well. I feel like he'll compensate very well with DeShone Kizer. He had a decent season last year with the Browns. He had 413 yards receiving and a few touchdowns. And with Terrell Pryor gone, I feel like he's going to become the number 1 receiver over there. And Kizer has a good young receiver to throw to.
Yeah. Number 2 on my list of sleepers is Mike Wallace for Baltimore. I think the other 2 times that he's been at a team for more than 1 year, he did it in Miami, he did it somewhere else.
Steelers, I think.
Maybe, yeah. But that second year, he was always top 20 in fantasy, and this is his second year in Baltimore, especially with Joe Flacco. I think he'll have a great year.
My number 2 fantasy sleeper is Joe Mixon for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's a running back. He's a rookie this year. He had great numbers for the Oklahoma Sooners. In 2 years with them, he had over 2,000 rushing yards and 17 scores on the ground. His biggest problem is the incident he had in college where he hit the female. But if you look past that right now for fantasy value only, he is a great 3rd round, 4th round pick. And he's going to put up great numbers, especially since the Bengals have such a weak running game.
Yeah. So next I had kind of I guess not Joe Mixon kind of controversial, but it's a different kind of controversial in that I put Brandon Cooks, who is I don't know if anybody's considering him a sleeper. I put him in there before Julian Edelman got hurt, and now that Julian Edelman is out, it picks up his fantasy value even more. I think he'll be the number 1 receiver for Tom Brady, and I think he'll also force Rob Gronkowski into a bigger role as well, and Rob will have a great year as well. So, yeah.
Brandon Cooks was a top 10 wide receiver before that even.
Yeah.
And even now he's going to be a top 5 receiver with Edelman hurt, and you don't know how reliable Gronk will be injury-wise because he's very injury-prone the past few years. If Gronk goes out, then all of a sudden his value shoots up and LeGarrette Blount's gone, so their running game took a little bit of a hit.
Yeah.
Another fantasy sleeper I have is Dalvin Cook for the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings' passing game, you don't know how that's going to be with Bradford and Bridgewater competing for minutes. And Dalvin Cook put up great numbers in college for the Florida State Seminoles. And he had, in 3 seasons, almost 50 touchdowns on the ground, which is insane for college. And I feel like Dalvin Cook's going to be really good over there in Minnesota, especially the offensive line they have going over there now.
Yeah. My 4th one on my list is Leonard Fournette for Jacksonville, and I think he's going to have a big year for some of the comments he made in the preseason about how he was adjusting to the NFL game. And not only that, but I think he's got kind of the build, the speed, and the agility to really work defenses and get a lot of yards on the ground. So I'm looking forward to him.
I feel like Fournette's going to be a top 3 fantasy running back for the rookie-wise.
Yeah.
Another player I have on my fantasy sleeper list is Jameis Winston for the Buccaneers. I feel like he's a top 10 fantasy quarterback, possibly even top 5, with the addition of Deshaun Jackson coming in. Even though Deshaun Jackson, he's a little old, he might not do the best. It's just another option he has over there. And Winston's one of the youngest quarterbacks to reach 50 touchdowns in a career, and he's putting up insane numbers for his age. I feel like Winston's just a reliable quarterback. You know what you're going to get. He's going to surprise you. He's going to put up big numbers this year. Can do great.
Speaking of Deshaun Jackson, we'll come back to him later. My last one on my sleepers is Marshawn Lynch for Oakland. I'm sorry. I think he'll coming back, playing for his hometown team. He's going to be rejuvenated, and with the help of the quarterback they got down there, I think he'll have a really great year.
I feel like Beast Mode's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
The last person I have on my fantasy sleepers is Carson Wentz for the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz. He had a shaky year last year, but I feel like with the addition of LeGarrette Blount, he might have a little bit of somebody to rely on. And who's the new addition they got at receiver? Alshon Jeffrey?
Yeah.
With Alshon Jeffrey coming in, that's a huge target they have to throw to right there. Wentz is going to put up big numbers, and the Eagles That might surprise you. They might make the playoffs as a wild card this year.
I could see that happening. Do you want to start us off with bust, or do you want me to take it?
My number one fantasy bust I have is Ben Roethlisberger. Don't get me wrong, Roethlisberger is going to have a great year, but I don't feel like he's a top 5 quarterback anymore. He is old. He's injury prone. He's kind of gotten out of shape the past 2 years. Antonio Brown's really the only guy he has to throw to anymore. I don't feel like Ben Roethlisberger's going to be as what he did last season because he had an incredible year last season, and I don't feel like he's going to put up those same numbers.
Yeah, if you've seen those workout videos where Ben Roethlisberger is walking around with ice all over his body, and you just see how worn down he's getting. My first bust is the new $27 million man, Matthew Stafford. I think coming off this big contract, I don't think he's going to work quite as hard. And his stats have really been decreasing the last 5 years. If you look at his fantasy rank, it's gone from 1st to 7th to 8th to 9th. So I think he'll fall off a little, and he'll probably be a top 15, but I don't think he'll be top 5 where people expect him to be this year.
I feel like Stafford still, non-fantasy wise, I feel like he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but fantasy wise, he just can't make it in the top 10. He has nobody to throw to. Golden Tate, if he's still there. There's nobody really for the Lions quarterback to throw to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a shame. Another fantasy bust I have is Sammy Watkins for the Los Angeles Rams.
I drafted him.
Sammy Watkins.
Talk about him.
He's a fantasy bust I have on my list. I really respect Sammy Watkins. He did okay in Buffalo with Tyrod Taylor, who's a much, much better quarterback than Jared Goff. But Sammy Watkins just drops too many balls in open situations, and he just can't keep up. He's not a number 1 receiver on a team. And going over at LA, competing with Keenan Allen and a couple other guys, young guys, and Jared Goff, who's a terrible quarterback, who should have never been drafted that early last year. I just feel like Sammy Watkins is going to be a huge letdown to many fantasy owners.
We'll wait and see. My next one is Eddie Lacy, recently traded to the Seattle Seahawks. I think without Aaron Rodgers to open up the field for him, it's going to be rough going for him. I know they got a good quarterback up there, but I just think he's going to have a rough year trying to get some space open. And I also think with the other running backs they have in the core up there, he's going to get less opportunities than he did before in Green Bay. So just keep an eye out for him.
Another fantasy bust I have is Tevin Coleman, the Falcons running back. With Devontae Freeman just signing that huge contract for $41 million or something like that over a few years, with $22 million guaranteed, Tevin Coleman's going to get less minutes because they want Freeman running the ball. Coleman had a decent year last year, at over 500 yards rushing, 8 TDs. That's pretty nice, but he's going to get a lot less minutes with Freeman getting that contract. They want Freeman with the ball.
Yeah, my next one, Pierre Garçon, and I will give you one word, and then I will tell you exactly why he's on my sleeper or he's on my bust list. Hoyer. Brian Hoyer is the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, and I think that is just going to be a garbage fire. They're not in a good place with quarterback right now, and I don't think that bodes well for the receivers. I think Garçon is going to have a rough year with Brian Hoyer down there, but I think he'll still be solid. He just won't be what you expect from him.
That's also kind of why I have T.Y. Hilton on my list for bust. I feel like Andrew Luck's a good quarterback, but nobody knows if Andrew Luck can stay healthy for an entire season. Andrew Luck has missed games almost every single year he's been in the NFL.
He's not even starting this year, right?
Andrew Luck?
Yeah, I thought he was out for the first week.
I think so, and yeah. T.Y. Hilton's only good with Andrew Luck as a quarterback because they got that dynamic duo together, but with Andrew Luck gone, T.Y. Hilton can't compete with the cornerbacks on most teams. And that T.Y. Hilton as a fantasy bust is reliant upon Andrew Luck's injury status, and I just feel like Luck's going to go down again this year.
My next one is Deshaun Jackson, who you mentioned earlier in relation to Jameis Winston, but I think Deshaun Watson is getting up there in age, and the kind of receiver that he is, he relies on his speed and agility, and I think that's got to come to an end at some point. I think you'll start to see a little bit of a downturn in his productivity in the next couple of years. So, and he will not have Kirk Cousins, whom I firmly believe is a good quarterback. He was on the short list for my sleepers. I didn't put him on there.
Cousins is a great quarterback.
Yeah. So he'll be good, not great, is what I wrote. So yeah.
My last fantasy bust I have on my list is LeGarrette Blount for the Eagles running back.
Blunt.
Blount. I mentioned him earlier. I said he would be well for Carson Wentz to have something to rely on, but I still feel like he won't put up the numbers he did last season in New England. Last year in New England, he put up 18 rushing touchdowns and over 1,000 yards, which is insane. But he did that with Tom Brady as his quarterback because New England would go up so much that they can just run the ball free willy-nilly whenever they wanted. And with Philadelphia, they're a wild card team at best. And I just don't feel like they're going to be running the ball as much this year. Last year, he had almost 300 attempts. I feel like he'll go back down where he usually is in his career at about 150 to about 175 attempts and maybe rush for like 600 yards. I just don't feel like he's going to put up the numbers he did last year. He put up 18 touchdowns last year. That was astronomical.
Yeah. My last one on my list is Dez Bryant for the Dallas Cowboys. I think with Ezekiel Elliott out, I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on Bryant and Dak, and I don't think they'll have a great year. I don't think they'll have a great first half at least until Elliott can come back and give them some help from the backfield. But because Ezekiel Elliott is a great pass defender, and and a lot of people don't understand that about him. He protects the quarterback like no other running back out there. So I think they might have they'll either have a rough first half and they'll get back on the horse at the end and have a decent year, or they'll just have a fairly rough year.
I also don't feel like Dak's going to be as good as he was last year. Everyone's like, oh, Dak led the team. Dak led the team. Dallas's defense led the team, and Ezekiel Elliott led the team. Dallas's defense is one of the best in the NFL, not fantasy-wise, but just pure talent-wise. And don't even get me started on Dallas's offensive line. They probably have the number one offensive line in the NFL by far.
Yeah.
And Dak's just not going to put up the numbers he did last year. I feel like he'll still be a good quarterback, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like he's going to be the leader of the team. Elliott's going to be the leader when he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it for our first podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
And we will see you later.